A blind peddler's warning and a weird glass eye plunge Frank and Joe Hardy into one of the most baffling cases they have ever tackled. The young detective's investigation takes them to a walled estate guarded by savage dogs, where a wealthy businessman is hiding out in fear of his life. Later, a midnight telephone tip leads to a strange encounter on a lonesome hillside and a hair-raising escape from death at the bottom of Barmut Bay. The theft of a valuable oriental idol called the Jeweled Siva, a daringly designed hydrofoil speedboat, the Sea Spook, the strange disappearance at sea of a prime suspect, and a walking mummy all figure excitingly in this complex case.
Yeah.
Goonies.
Yes, he does.
Bullet-shaped head.
Yeah, the ears.
Like large gorilla arms, cauliflower ears.
And he can't speak because he got punched in the throat.
It's a Goonies crossover, and
Oh
I'm just realizing that right
that
now.
Rip Cinder is Chump.
Hi, you guys!
It's 2018 and everyone gets a podcast. Mine is the Hardy Boys Drinkbook. Each week I sit down with creative and hilarious people to talk about a book in the Hardy Boys Mystery Series. Then I have one of my favorite local bartenders mix us up a custom cocktail to go along with the drink. Today I'm joined once again by my brother and co-producer, Jack Wefso, and we're going to talk about the 16th book in the Hardy Boys Mystery Series, A Figure in Hiding. Take a ride in a high-speed hydrofoil boat, get kidnapped to a surf picnic, and almost kill a man with your own car in the Hardy Boys Drinkbook number 16, A Figure in Hiding, featuring Jack Wefso. Hello, detectives. Thank you for tuning in. I am here with my brother and co-host, Jack Wefso. Hi, Jack.
Always happy to be back. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Jack, we are reading the 16th book in the series, and I just want to get your first impressions, because I have a lot of opinions about this mystery.
My first impressions of this mystery. What the hell is happening? I felt like for a lot of it was like...
I was continually asking myself, what is the mystery?
Yeah.
Like there are mysterious things.
Yeah, it was weird because...
What is the crime?
Yeah. And might it be swindling?
Swindling. General swindling.
General swindling.
I wrote that a lot. Every time the word swindling showed up, I wrote the word general.
Yeah, because like I didn't realize you could be charged with that. But so that was a lot of it. Was like, what the heck is happening? But okay, I'm gonna counter that with some positives.
Okay,
there are some. They're starting to get into, I talked about it the last time I was on the show too, how they're starting to get into the Hardy Boys the way I remember them, which is things like radio transceivers and like rings and stuff that you talk to, that kind of Johnny Quest, Dick Tracy.
Fact that this is the first book we've read with a gang that has a gimmick.
Yeah, totally.
Actually, no, I think the one where they went to Mexico, that gang dressed up like Apache or like Aztec warriors, remember?
That's a little offensive.
Yes, but that was their gimmick.
That was their thing. That was their hook.
The ghost of Aztec warriors.
Jeez.
But this one, the Goggler Gang, really did set the bar. It was something that I didn't know I wanted so much.
Oh my god, and we are going to talk so much about the Goggler Gang, because there's a gang that needs some leadership, I think, and also some aesthetics changes.
A quick note about the Hardy Boys Mystery Series. The Hardy Boys Mystery Series were written by Franklin W. Dixon in the 1920s originally and into the 30s. Franklin W. Dixon is known better as the inventor of...
the Mason-Dixon line.
Exactly. And, it was sort of a partnership.
Yeah, exactly.
But
it was supposed to be a railroad, and then things just got way out of hand.
So, in the 1950s, the Hardy Boys were edited down. They trimmed about 100 pages out of each book. They changed some of the content. Some of these, and I haven't checked about this one, this felt to me like a less edited book.
I agree with you.
There's a couple of pieces of technology that they use that I'm like, oh, that's still clearly from the 30s and 40s. All the stuff with the switchboards.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of hints that stuff didn't get edited out.
Right, yeah. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know, because first of all, I should probably preface this by saying I read this whole thing.
Yeah, you're the first person to have read any of these books digitally.
Yeah, I read it on a Kindle. Thank you for sending me the EPUB file.
Happy to do.
And now I'm holding in my hand. I'm tapping it. A souvenir hardcover copy right now. So thank you. But my copyright page, at least in my Kindle, says that the first copyright date is like I want to say like 63.
I'm going to check my own copyright.
Which just isn't right because let me see what. Yeah.
But hey, I don't know at what point they caught up. My earliest copyright date listed is 1937.
Oh, yeah, I have 37 as well in the paper copy.
37,
okay.
65,
that makes
and
sense, too, especially given some of the just terminology that they use and stuff like that. And also, like you said, the descriptions of the tech. It looks less heavily edited.
Yeah, but as far as narrative, you can totally tell that 100 pages were gutted out of this.
Yeah.
Because there's periods of time where you're like, you didn't tell us anything. There's whole characters that are like introduced and explained in the last chapter of the book.
Yeah.
Which, you're like, oh, all of that.
God, when we get to that last chapter, I'm gonna punch this microphone because, like, what a lazy.
Yes.
All right.
It's like the ending of Tommy Knockers.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Oh, and over.
Yeah.
So the book begins with the boys leaving a baseball field, like a baseball, and it's a postseason game for the high school that they just won against the Alumni All-Stars.
Which I immediately was like, alumni? Is that old people from Bayport High who like come back and form a team and then have to play against like the varsity? Baseball team?
It's kind of a cool idea.
Yeah, I guess. Like they're
going to get stomped, do you feel like? Because these kids play baseball every day after school, and you can play like twice a week after work, or maybe once on the weekends.
Yeah, but maybe one or two of those people went like semi-pro or pro.
All-stars.
Yeah, exactly. So, it is the Alumni All-Stars. So I bet you there's decades. where it's like, are you kidding me? The surviving All-Stars are like mostly in their 80s and 90s, and then two guys who didn't die in the war, But then there's other years where it's actually a bit of a tougher ball game. But they not only have handily won against the Alumni All-Stars, but they specifically mentioned that both Frank and Joe get game-changing winning plays personally.
Yeah, why? Well, because they're better than the
They're
team.
the heroes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're the Iron Team. There may be no Iron Team, but there is an Iron Hardy Boys. So, and then do they immediately get approached?
Yeah, instantaneously. They're walking away and they are like, "Hey, congratulations! Well, you had you hit the pop-up fly, and well, you had the double up at the bases.
Get a room is what I'm like. Just
come on, yeah.
No reason for all this."
And I also like that, like, it's not that Frank won or that Joe won. It's that they
won.
Each boy won.
We won.
Yeah, we won, exactly. And immediately, they were approached by a blind peddler.
Yes. Who's out at a baseball stadium by a high school. Like, no.
This is Bayport, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I mean, you don't know where the high school is in relation to downtown, in relation to Rockport, in relation to the beach.
Ocean City.
Yeah, exactly. Ocean City. We have no idea.
Isn't that where Steven Universe lives, like in Ocean City?
I don't know. That'd be talk about amazing crossovers.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
I would love to see the Steven Universe commentary on the Hardy Boys world. It's a pretty feminist show. Great.
Yep. So he approaches them and he sells them, I think,
a
pencil with a card attached, and he's saying, we'll go to the blind, and it's got a little message on the card that says it says, watch out for the first signs of bad eyesight. And it also has a pencil with it, and he says, oh, thank you, and he goes wandering away. And then it's when they get into their car, their red convertible, that they notice that some of the lines have been scratched out. Did your copy actually display which words are scratched out?
No, it
because
didn't.
my first of all, my digital copy didn't, and my paper copy didn't either. So I had to surmise.
Okay.
But remember, the card said, "Watch out for the first signs of bad eyesight." But some of the words are crossed out, so instead it says, "Watch out for the bad eye." And then underneath, scribbled in pencil, it says, "Tell FH."
Yeah, and they shout. That must mean Fenton Hardy.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, we're in a car. I just want to jump back. For regular listeners of the show, you might have realized that the Hardy Boys have some sort of like shape-shifting car that changes at least color, or they get it repainted. And the amount of times it's been blown up and like put back together, I wonder if when they show up to pick up their car, the mechanic just has a different car and
just
like,
ready
here you
for
go,
him.
Boys.
Do you think that's part of the whole like Fenton Hardy illusion, or like it's almost starting to feel like a little Truman Show?
Yeah.
Well, you know what else I think of is I think of Breaking Bad, And I think of, like, you know, him with the Aztec, and, like, he keeps, like, damaging it in different ways and taking it back. And then, of course, our good friend John Aston, who actually plays the mechanic who buys the car in season 5, gets that great moment. But, yeah, I think about the same thing of, like, how many times has this car come into the shop?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, they take it to the mechanic twice in this book.
In this book. And the first time after that wreck, I'm like, that car is totaled.
Yeah. Well, it's been blown up and put back together.
Why are you...
I don't think it's the same car. Because that car was seafoam green. They made a big deal about how their last car was seafoam green.
Seafoam green. And this one is a red convertible. Yeah, you're right.
I don't even think that one was a convertible. But then the one they did have a convertible at some point before this.
Because we talked about it in the last episode about...
Yeah, they were driving with their top down, and then all of a sudden an airplane came in, and then it skimmed the top of the car. And we were like, but the top is down.
So skim the top of their head. I remember that. episode.
All right.
So the boys surmise that the card came from one of Dad's underworld informants, and he's trying to get him a message.
Yes.
To watch out for something called the bad eye.
Bad eye.
Yeah.
And the kids are so culturally stupid that they don't know what the evil eye is.
Yeah. They've literally never heard of something called the evil eye.
Oh, what is it? They run into one of their friends, right?
Tony Prito.
In his
panel truck. Every time you see him in this book, he's driving his family's panel truck.
A boy's got to work.
Yeah,
man.
Boy has to work.
Yeah,
and
not the Hardy Boys, but other boys.
But other boys. Yeah, exactly.
Like real 30s boys.
Yeah, had to work hard.
Especially with Italian immigrant parents.
And he basically just shows up to say, hey, you know, if you're interested in something that goes fast, there is a hydrofoil boat out on the bay that you should go take a look at.
Now, I didn't know a lot about hydrofoil boats.
I had to Google it.
And they're awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely a thing that should have been in a Hardy Boys book before this.
Yeah, so talk, because I looked at a bunch of pictures of them.
That's all I looked at as well. Mm-hmm. They seem to be large aluminum solid like crafts that sit above the waves.
Yeah, they sit on they're called hydrofoils, but they're like almost like
pontoons.
Yeah, they're like pontoons, like super fast pontoons.
Yeah, and then they have propellers that are in the water, and then it seems like they're able to get up to super high speeds because of probably not having the water resistance.
Yeah, exactly. So most of the keel's above the water.
But they look like something out of science fiction.
Totally.
Out of 1960s science
fiction. Exactly. Yeah, no, the hydrofoil boats look cool, and the illustrations of them are pretty neat too.
They decide to take the Sleuth, their own boat, out and just try to get as close as possible to this.
This is another one of those moments where time doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
because like Tony Prito's like, that boat's out on the bay if you wanted to go and look at it, and so they go, okay, and then they get in their car. They drive home.
I thought they were going right there, and it was like, no, don't get distracted. There's a mystery. But instead, they were like, no, let's go home.
There is a paragraph, because it's one of those where, like, clearly that's an edit.
Yeah.
Where, and also, I have to stop here, because we get our first exposure to the verb towed, not as in towing something behind you, but poking something with your toe.
It's like fingering the barrel of a gun.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like fingering the muzzle. And Frank toes the accelerator on the car. He kind of wiggles his toe around on it.
I remember very clearly in an episode of SpongeBob, he's taking his driving test, and he's supposed to just use a big toe to accelerate. So his toe like punches through the bottom of the sole of his shoe, and then like presses down on it. That's what I imagine.
Yeah, he towed the accelerator.
Towed it.
Yeah, but yeah. So then they drive, and from how I gather it, on their way to their house, they can see the bay, and they can see the sea.
They're on
spook.
Shore Road.
Yeah, which is the name of the hydrofoil boat, the Sea Spook, out on the
the Sea Spook.
Well, it was 1937.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
So let's see. They get pretty close to the boat, right? Because after they go home, they get their boat.
They go home. They eat some milk and cookies.
Yeah. This book is so weird. Chapter 1, folks.
Yeah, exactly. They leave a note for Dad about where they're going.
Even though their dad is out of town in St. Louis.
Yeah. They leave a note for him.
In case he came home.
In case he came back and needed to know about that card with the Tell the Evil Eye.
Right.
Which was where this all started.
That's true.
But they've already been distracted by a high-speed boat in the bay.
Who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
They're virile young boys.
Yeah. And then they they jump in the car, and on their way to the bay, they hear this convenient news flash on the radio.
Oh, that's right. The only news flash in the entire book.
A daring robbery in New York City last night netted thieves a small oriental idol called the Jeweled Siva, valued at over $20,000. The owner of the art curio shop from which it was taken said the ivory figure stood only 6 inches high, but was studded with valuable gems. Wow, that's some haul, Joe murmured. I wouldn't mind working on a case like that.
I do want to point out that Joe murmurs all the time in this book.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that?
I don't know. Is it the same reason that Frank grins?
Frank grins. I don't know. So creepy. It's hard to say something through a grin without seeming like a psychopath.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, okay, but then they finally do go out.
Mm-hmm. They do go out, and they make it to the bay. They get in their boat, and they're like, "It's over there." And then you're right. They basically full throttle straight at the sea spook to get a better look at it.
Yeah, and then surprise, surprise, it almost crashes.
Nearly boat crash.
It turns their boat over, right?
Yeah, it does. Well, it turns a figure 8, and they're really amazed at like how adept it is and everything. But like I think actually in the last episode I was on, we talked about how the boys are really good at spotting who is piloting a boat from very far away.
Yeah, they barely know the pilot of this experimental craft, Bill Braxton.
Has he been in a book before, by the way?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
but listeners remind me.
Yeah, exactly. I don't remember him.
But anyway, they look at him and they're like, that's not Bill Braxton piloting the boat.
Yeah, Bill Braxton's next to him. The guy at the helm actually looks terrified. And like, and because, trying to do another figure 8, and he can't come out of it. And basically they come really close to each other, and they manage to miss each other, but the swell of the hydrofoil tips the Hardy Boys, tips the sleuth over.
And then they get yelled at by the dude riding.
Right. Which is who's
a bad guy.
Yeah, that's your first indication that he's a bad guy, is that when everybody's safe.
Yeah.
And all of the normal people are like, is everyone safe? And then the bad guy barges in and is like, what's the big idea? You don't even know where you're supposed to be. Like, he just comes in mad, coming in hot. Yeah, exactly.
But
and Joe throws an insult back at him about how he shouldn't handle anything better than a rowboat.
Good one, Joe.
Yeah, nice.
You got him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then they get towed back to the dock.
The normal toad.
They don't get...
wiggle their toe at them back to the dock.
No. Somebody hooked a rope onto their boat and pulled it.
Yeah, right.
And on the dock, they find a glass eye.
Yeah.
Like a marble. Like a full, not like a prosthetic
They specifically say it would be too large to like jam into your eye socket, and I'm glad nobody tries.
I'm going to try, said Joe. But I really
shoving it into his right eye.
Hey, I just like that he's like, hey, say, is Lambert the angry mean guy?
Yeah, his name is Lambert.
Blind in one eye? Not that I know of. Why? Well, someone dropped a glass eye. I'm like, you think somebody dropped a glass eye and your first reaction was to just pick it up?
Yeah. Right?
If you did
think it was slimy.
If you did think it was a glass eye, it was in someone's face.
It was in their eye socket. And also, do you think that someone who has a glass eye wouldn't notice when their glass eye fell out of their face?
And landed on the dock? And also, I feel like a lot of this trouble could have been avoided if Joe would have just towed the eye into the water.
Just wiggled his toe at it until it was in the water. I'm not going to touch that.
Mystery over.
Mystery solved. End of book. Yeah, because it really is. The glass eye becomes the mystery.
Yeah, so because they realize that the glass eye looks just like the eye that was drawn on the card.
Exactly right. It has these weird like bloodshot. They're a combination of like bloodshot and lightning bolts, and also the pupil of the eye is like a cat. It's like a slitted pupil, like a cat's pupil. They talk about that a lot. Mm-hmm.
I like when they go home and they talk to Aunt Gertrude about what happened. They talk to Aunt Gertrude about what happened.
And she catch everybody up.
Yes, they do.
You notice that?
They check everybody in. They check in with the cops a lot, which is good. But I really like how Aunt Gertrude says they're talking about who had this glass eye.
Yeah.
And she's like, the fellow probably had spotted a one-eyed murderer in town. The the peddler. She's like, oh, I bet he spotted a one-eyed murderer in town. In fact, the killer may be after him, and he wants your father to rescue him. I'm like, very dark.
Wow, you
like
just
that.
went right for the
Murder.
Murder. It's like, well, Auntie, we actually don't chase a lot of murderers. But I do want to say, first of all, there's this moment, because obviously their boat has been capsized.
Yes.
Where they talk about how they've changed into their swim trunks. And they specifically
let their clothes dry out.
But they specifically mention that their clothes are something called wash and wear, and they dry
super fast.
Is that a thing I don't know about? Like, are the clothes that I currently am wearing called, like, are they wash and wear clothes, and I just don't know it because that was like an innovation in clothes?
I mean, they sell those like pairs of like boxers and stuff for traveling that dry super fast.
Oh, you know what? I have a couple that I bought when I went to Australia that are they're like, oh yeah, this is and they feel weird on your skin. Yeah, but yeah, they dry super fast.
But do you think? I mean, I'm looking at this cover. He's in a sweater, shirt,
this wash and wear tweed suit.
I bet that looks weird as hell.
Yeah. Oh, but one of the things that I want to say is that there are two moments in this book of honestly really excellent mystery foreshadowing. Not big over story, but like, oh shit, that was a clue. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. Is that he specifically says that Lambert is staying at the Bayport Inn Motel. When Bill Braxton is like, oh yeah, he was a buyer and he's interested in buying the boat. He's staying over at the Bayport Hotel. That's all he says about it.
Well, they immediately after they go home, they go to that motel. It says after supper, the boys drove to the Bayview Motel.
Okay.
The manager, a fat, balding man. So they go talk to this man, the most helpful hotel manager in the world.
A hotel will give you any information that you ask for on a guest.
Anybody will. Apparently, like, people who run antique stores...
taxi cab companies, they will literally give you any information, and they have the records to back it up.
And if you're asking, you probably have a right to know.
That should be the NSA's, like, ads. They could run YouTube ads.
Yep.
Like, that's a fair point. That's a fair point. So they get a bunch of info about how long he stayed and
the phone calls he received or did not receive.
And what numbers he dialed.
Yeah.
But the primary information that they learn in this visit is how long he stayed.
Yeah.
And that he left,
but didn't leave a
forwarding address.
Yeah, because like, why would he?
Yeah, right. Because when was the last time that you stayed at a hotel where you were like, checking out, please, and they were like, okay, you're all set, and you were like, and you wrote down, and you were like, also, this is my forwarding address.
They were like, oh, did you tell people to send mail?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we're here for 4 days.
Yeah. I mean,
I changed all of my addresses
to this hotel,
to this room. Is ridiculous. Like, that's why. I let the post office know I had my driver's license changed.
That's why I instructed you to tell everyone any information they needed, just in case you needed to find me. But that's basically what and also that when he checked out, he seemed upset.
Yes, and
didn't seem too happy though. Then
they didn't seem too happy though.
Yeah,
they do decide to call Bill Braxton, the guy from the boat, and he gets knocked out on the phone call.
What? Like,
why wouldn't you wait till somebody hung up the phone and knocked
right? Out? Exactly. They're like, "Hey, Bill, remember that eye we found?" Yeah. Well, we just got off the phone with the hotel where that guy Lambert was staying, and it turns out he kind of was mad at a lot of people and left angry. So just a heads up, he might come back looking for that. And he's like, "Okay, well, I'll keep it." Ow, shit, man! And then like they.
And luckily, they don't do the thing that Nancy Drew did in our last episode, which is forget all about it.
Who is this?
No. They immediately decide to follow up.
They dash over there, which of course they are terribly stymied.
Oh, that's right.
3, count them, 3 red lights.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah,
those poor boys. And
it talks about it, like there's a whole paragraph about how frustrated. It reminds me of Frank Wrench from Arrested Development. The like side TV show cop character who his whole gimmick is that he has to follow every rule.
Okay,
so he's like chasing a criminal, and then he's like, "Stop sign!" And the criminal, that's what it reminded me.
Yes, they can't just blaze on through them. They're the Hardy Boys. Who's gonna care?
Well, later they run some red lights, but we'll get there.
Bill's been hurt, but he's okay.
Yep, exactly. He's fine.
They get him into an ambulance.
Yeah, he has to go to the hospital.
Why does he have to go to the hospital? They never have to go to the hospital.
Well, because he has a wound on the back of his head that, if I remember correctly, Frank fingers a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's it. It's warm in there. It's
softer than you want it to be.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. So then they go home where Fenton Hardy has returned.
Hooray!
Yeah. And he's back from his case. And so they brief him. They tell him about... first they tell him about the business card that they received from the guy.
And Fenton tells him that guy's name is Henry Zada.
Yep. And he's a well-known informant who is not blind.
Terrible thing to be a well-known informant.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Unknown informant would be better.
It's like later when...
But explain some of Zada's problems.
Let's see. And then he tells them about... They show them the eye.
Uh-huh.
And he tells them about the Goggler Gang.
Yeah.
This is our first reference to the Goggler Gang. And I just wrote it awesome.
Yeah, exactly. The Goggler... That's like some Batman the Animated Series style villain.
They're like the henchmen to Catwoman in the Batman 60s show where their shirts just said kitten.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they all had henchmen like that in that old 60s show. It was just all based on, like, the Jokers just said things like ha and yuck and stuff like that. But
awesome show.
Wow, what a great show.
But these gogglers, this Goggler Gang, they wear spectacles that have bulging eyes on them, which I think would just mess with your vision so bad.
We're going to talk about this several times throughout the book, but yes, if you're going to...
They're looking through a fisheye lens all the time?
No.
Okay.
No. The outfit is a nylon pantyhose over your face, and then on top of that,
the novelty glasses.
Light up novelty glasses that go over your eyes.
But couldn't properly sit on your ears because your ears are pinned down by a nylon
That's
stocking.
Correct. So they're constantly slipping off of your face, right? Also, the nylon is very hard to see through.
And you put on glasses that are
light up, which means there are lights pressed against your eyes. So, like... Everywhere these guys go, they must have their hands out in front of them, kind of like zombies.
We call them the blind boys.
The blind boys. Yeah, except the Goggler Gang, they can't see shit.
But my favorite part about this is the name that Fenton Hardy, he's like, did that guy have a crooked nose? And they're like, he's like, I know him. That's
Spotty Lemuel.
Spotty Lemuel. I have not encountered the name Lemuel very often.
Yeah.
I think like Gulliver from Gulliver's Travels.
I was actually, it reminded me of Pepe Le Pew.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like the Le Pew is supposed to be like a reference to his stink, you know?
The Pew.
The P-U.
Yeah. And he's the mule.
But for some reason, I don't know, Lemuel.
Lemuel.
Sorry
to all you Lemuels out there. We don't.
Yeah, hey, nothing wrong.
Or if your name is like Stumpy Dowd. Like,
hey, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, but I mean, you don't have to go by Stumpy, you know?
No.
Like, everybody has nicknames. My real name is not Jack. But the other thing that I want to say about this is that I really like the moment when they're like, he then says, "Oh yeah, I know Spotty Lemuel," and he hands over a mugshot because he has everybody's mugshot.
But he doesn't even get it out of a folder.
No.
You know what? No, he does. He leaves through his criminal file.
Yeah, his criminal file. But he hands over the mugshot, and they say. What is it? You're probably looking right at it. They say something about how he is...
No wonder he's called Spotty. His face here is covered with freckles. And then Mr. Hardy says he probably got them bleached off by a dermatologist.
Bleached off? By a dermatologist? Was like, we're just going to put a little bleach on each
I don't know if that's like a generic term he's using for the process, but if you've ever seen somebody who has had their skin artificially lightened, you can tell immediately that's the first thing they would have noticed about him, is that there was something really weird with his face.
Well, they do actually say when they first get on the boat that he looks...
Scars?
They say strangely pale. Yeah, but
okay, good setup.
Still,
got me, Dixon.
Yeah, but still, bleached.
Yeah,
I hope to God that
I can't believe he wouldn't disappear from the country after having that procedure done. You think he'd go to the other side of the planet if he's willing to go to those lengths?
Yeah, exactly. To bleach his whatever. Okay.
But then a crazy old man number 2 of 3 or 4,
Zachary Mudge, who
they must have thought he was hilarious.
I wrote Zachary Mudge, an attempt at a character.
Yeah, it made me think of Sandy. The guy who sold sand or whatever.
The guy who lived on the beach and combed through sand dunes to find things in the sand to sell and named himself Sandy. Yeah. No, this is exactly the same thing. But this is like where they were like, we need a character.
Like a wacky old
He
man.
should have a thing.
Yeah.
But then they just kept giving him a thing and then another thing. And by the time he arrives, he is a scrawny, ancient man wearing nothing but shorts and a straw hat. He's topless the entire book.
Oh, yeah.
He's shirtless the entire time. This crazy, spindly old guy comes up.
Who it turns out is very wealthy.
He's extremely wealthy, but when he first knocks on the door, he's like, I just escaped from an insane asylum up the street.
And they're like, come in.
Yeah, they're like, oh, please, well, right inside, sir. And and he's like, I had my limo driver. Charles, if somebody knocked on your door and was like, I just escaped from the halfway house 6 blocks down. I had my limo driver drop me off here. They said that you could get me in touch with a detective who could help expose all of the lies that are happening in that place.
I mean, it's probably the kind of thing that would make me the bad guy in a Netflix series or something. But what I would do, no, I'd be like, cool, and I'd like give them some food and some water, and I would go be like, cool, I'm gonna make some calls, and I would call the police. Yeah, and the police would show up and they'd take them back there. It turns out they'd be in on it, and I'd be the bad guy who's like, no, they're clearly like, I think they're not violent, but they seem very,
But
very...
it turns out that like you didn't actually call the police, you called a different... Yeah, exactly. Like, and then it's Stranger Things, basically.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, or whatever. but Zach...
Old Zach Mudge.
Old Zachary Mudge. And I do have to read. This is the first time that I saw something that I had to read. The man snorted and fished a large cigar from his pocket. He unwrapped it, bit off the tip, and lit the cigar with a gold lighter. So he's sitting in their living room on their couch. He pulls a cigar out of his shirt and he goes, and then sticks it in his mouth and like he must have just bit the tip off and spit it on the floor.
I really like that this is immediately after he insulted the woman whose house this is by saying, leave me alone, woman, confounded females, you're just like my daughter. I wouldn't be in this fix if she hadn't shanghaied me into a blasted farm. Which I'm like, we're sexist and racist.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, oh no, he's just an old coot.
Like Laura Hardy is like, you're very independent. And I just wrote, bless your heart.
Yeah. Bless your heart, Lord. But yeah, so he comes in like a fucking tornado, basically.
Turns out he's been at this health resort that his family kind of stuck him at.
Yeah, and while I also wrote, why do the boys believe him? Yes. It turns out that his story checks out, and he is
But they have an impeccable judge of character.
It's true. Jack. Yeah, perfect judge of character. His story checks out. His daughter, basically,
and son-in-law
thought that he was working too hard, so they send him off to this health retreat.
It's a sanitarium.
Yeah. Exactly right. Send him to a sanitarium to relax and calm down. And he believes that it's not really a sanitarium. It's just a place for what?
Vegetables.
He says vegetable farm. He thinks it's an insane asylum, and that he's never going to get out.
Right. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
I think it actually, his whole conspiracy theory lends more credence to the idea that he's mentally...
And that maybe it is an insane asylum, and that's where he should be.
Yeah, because it's clearly just a place where you can relax and exercise, and it's only for rich people. Yeah. And yet he thinks that he's not allowed to leave, even though they clearly let him leave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he just walked away.
Because somebody would have, chased him down.
Yeah.
Or they would have told his
family.
I mean, his limo driver was able to pick him up. And there's a gate.
Can you imagine being that guy's limo driver?
I think it'd be awesome.
I mean, it would be like, who would be it would be like being...
Donald's limo driver before he was the president.
Before he was president.
Yeah.
That's exactly
all
right.
of a sudden, it's just some random place.
Or like Bieber, like Justin Bieber maybe.
Yeah.
It's probably like being Justin Bieber's limo driver where you're like, I guess I'm going to, you know, wherever.
Just on call?
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, that was crazy.
Let's see, do they go out to the farm next?
The next note I have is Chet.
Oh, okay.
They run in. They drive out to the
Oh
house.
my God, so angry.
Oh my God. They're assholes to Chet.
Although Chet made a good lineman on the Bayport 11, he was not noted for his physical activity. Chet's chief hobbies were food and relaxation whenever he had the chance. The Hardys pulled up and their chum stopped to greet them. His moon face was lobster red and dripping with perspiration. Chet pulled out one end of the thick towel draped around his neck and mopped his forehead.
You out of your mind?
Joe teased.
I thought you'd engaged in a hammock for the summer. I'm getting in shape,
Chet retorted, plopping himself down on a boulder. He plucked out a candy bar, peeled off the wrapper, and began munching it hungrily.
Well, that chocolate bar will put you in shape.
Frank said with a grin.
Like a lead balloon.
Aw, cut it out. I have to have some quick energy, don't I? Listen, what's all this road work about?
Joe asked.
You're not doing it for fun.
Chet looked smugged.
Just wait and see, you guys. Certain people needed a powerfully built young fellow for an important athletic post. And I was their natural choice. Choice for what? A before and after model for one of those diet ads?
Okay, I'm gonna stop there. Seriously? Go fuck
Yeah,
yourself.
like fuck you. But my favorite part is the last thing that Chet said, which
Great.
is, okay, pal, have your laugh.
Chet got up and this time set off at a brisker pace.
Like, I feel like even Chet is like, all right, assholes, you know what? Like, okay,
I'm trying.
You're so funny, Joe. I hope you have fun being funny.
It's like making fun of a homeless person for not having a job.
Yeah.
Who's at a job interview.
Right.
And
Yeah,
being-
exactly. Like, this is him working and, like, trying, and they're like, it's never gonna work, fatty. Boy, this is the dumbest thing you've ever done. Like,
See you later, bro. And then
yeah.
And he's
Well, and I love that his response is like, okay, guys. So then they get a phone call. If I remember correctly, they get a phone call from the hotel manager who says something along the lines of, hey, I just wanted to call and let you know that Mr. Lambert came back.
and did leave a forward
And was like, hey, in case I do, in case any mail arrives for me
at this hotel
at
agent.
this hotel I stayed at for one night, please send it to this address.
Why would the manager of the hotel be like, okay? and not-
Absolutely.
you think that he's so open with information, the first thing he would say would be like, there were a couple of Hardy Boys.
Of fellas who were actually looking for you, and I'll probably call them. Why don't you stick around? We'll call them together.
They're like, no, I'm going to leave.
No, he's very, very, very discreet when talking with Mr. Lambert.
So they get this new address and they decide to go to investigate it, and it's clearly like they show up and there's an eye, the same eye from
They're drawn on like a. First of all,
on a signpost.
The address is an abandoned house.
Yes.
And then on the fence post outside the house is drawn the eye, and then all the lights are out.
Yes.
But there's like a lanky,
lanky young dude with a
teenage
pointy
kid.
nose. I imagine him very pointy faced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Just like angular features.
Yes.
He basically says, "What are you guys doing here?" And they're like, "Well,
we're told to come here.
yeah." And then
We're here for the meeting.
no, well, that's not how it starts because he starts by being. He says, "I'm the lookout," or "I'm the checker."
Oh, that's right.
And he says, "Are you here for the?" First of all, he's the worst like secret guard ever.
Yeah.
Because he right away is like, "Are you here for the meeting or not?" It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Like
He
if
says, "Are you guys here for the meeting, or are you just snooping around?" Like, well, if we're just snooping around, dude, you just told us there's a meeting.
yeah, exactly.
So
and
then they
they're
say,
like,
and he's like, "Well, where's your pass or whatever for the meeting?" And they show him on a hunch
yeah,
because they actually have a hunch that pays off.
yeah.
They show him the glass eye that they found, and he lets them in.
He's like, "You're good to go," and they go around. He says, "Go around the back of the house and in
Yes.
the back." So they go around the back of the house, and they open up the door.
Yeah, and immediately get got.
Attacked.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get got. Yeah, they get jumped from behind.
I just wrote
by
stupid boy.
Yeah, come on, man. By bunch of guys who are wearing nylon stockings over their heads, which makes it hard to see. And then there's a great...
they're in the darkness.
But there's a great moment, though, where their mouths have been covered, right? Then,
yeah.
But then Joe manages to get the hand on, and he unleashes a volley of piercing yells.
Almost as good as an attack.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought of the 1990s X-Men character Banshee, who actually dates back to well before the 90s.
Yeah, 1975.
But that's
a volley.
Yeah, a volley of piercing yells. But he actually just called for help.
Yep, and help arrives.
Yeah, very quickly.
They find out a lot of stuff about the. It seems like the guys are trying to steal the glass eye.
Yeah, well, the whole time that they're
getting
kind of struggling with
the fight.
Their attackers are making a lot of grabs at their pockets area. There's a lot of fingers going kind of near their kind of like where you have pockets
on your pants. Yeah, they were trying to reach into their pants.
Yeah, the fingers were really a little.
And so the cops arrive, and I was really surprised that the cops arrived so fast.
They explain why.
Because they were already on the lookout.
Like, Chief Colleague told us that we should go out here because that guy Lambert left a forwarding mailing address.
And you guys had a hunch.
Yeah, and so, And then they say, and then on our way here, somebody else called us. Oh, yeah, and then the neighbors called.
It does seem like this particular mystery is a lot of... We have the person first and the crime later.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, this guy is probably
Seems like,
a
let's
criminal.
just follow him until he commits a crime, and then call the police.
Yeah.
Which
is a great way to do police work.
I guess, yeah. Not terribly ethical.
Some neighbor calls. I did realize that when the cops get there, they use a strip of celluloid. They use a strip of celluloid to open the lock to the house.
Yeah, without a warrant. They cops just be and eat that place.
Yeah. And no probable cause, really. I mean, the boys didn't say we were attacked in there. They were attacked in the backyard.
And I think at some point they're like, well, it's a house that is vacant and somebody else is about to move in. And I'm like, yeah, that's still private property though.
Even if just a bank owner.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it's an intermediary, you can't... But yeah, you're right. They break into that house and they just kind of go rifling around.
Don't find a lot.
Well, that's good because it would be inadmissible in court.
A lot of this evidence that they get is inadmissible in court.
Yeah.
They, let's see. Oh, they go to the Hot Rocket, which is the diner. It's
yep.
I assume it's Pops from the Archie comics or whatever. Yeah, so they go to the Hot Rocket, and Chet Morton is there, who I kind of imagine when they walk in, he's psyched to see his friends, and then at the same time is bracing
I'm about to do this again. I'm about to do this again.
Yeah.
Because they're always like this to me. But he's reading a bodybuilding magazine.
And eating a hamburger.
Yep, exactly.
Just fine.
He's proteining. He's adding mass.
Yeah. They say they order milkshakes, and then they're like, wow, you're really... going in for physical culture, and he's like, and He-Man food. And I'm like, dude, I've seen you eat 4 burgers. Don't
come on, there's a He-Man food.
But he says all he's going to eat is ground beefsteak, milk, raw fruits, and leafy vegetables. No more candy. And I'm like, good for you. Dude.
Yeah, absolutely. You're on a health track.
Yeah, that's sweet, and that's not like a fad diet. That's just some good standard nutrition.
I'm gonna eat normal food that either lives on or grows from the earth.
Yeah, and I'm not going to eat any more candy or milkshakes. And I'm like, sweet.
Yes, dude, great.
Less refined sugar, good call. And then they just what made you so hip on bodybuilding? I think they're a little concerned and intimidated about this. They don't want their friend to change.
Well, I mean, can you imagine if you were Frank and Joe Hardy and all of a sudden your friend Chet Morton was bigger, stronger, handsomer, musclier than you? You got to talk him down. You got to talk him out of it. And it will never happen.
No. And so he gets a job as the new assistant supervisor. It turns out he just got a job for the summer.
Yep.
As the assistant supervisor of physical training at Doc Grafton's health farm, which I thought personally that was going to turn into something more of a plant, that they needed some guy because he doesn't look like the guy. But then at the same time, it's sort of an convalescent home, and he seems like
I mean, you're not looking for a big, a big physical
You
train.
want somebody to kill them.
No, exactly. You're looking for someone who's like, and let's keep it up, folks. Everybody's doing great. And, and Chet's perfect for that job.
Yeah. So his job is going to be basically bouncing medicine balls, throwing them back and forth with guests to help them get in shape. And
what do they say to him?
They say, "Oh, now I get it. You mean they hired you as an exercise boy?" Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
But it actually turns out, and he goes back to be like, well, it's an assistant manager position because I have blah, blah, blah. But who cares?
Yeah, why you gotta...
Also, he's like 17. This isn't his career.
No.
It's a summer job.
So then they make a comment, because Zachary Mudge is there, like, oh, what can you imagine Chet putting Zachary Mudge through the exercise bit? And then they have to tell him all about...
Yeah, because they continue to... They always fill up... They're really gracious, but always filling everybody in on their entire adventure, which you would assume as a friend of the Hardys must get fucking exhausting.
Yeah, and he immediately checks out. He says, glass eyes, strong arm crooks, not for me.
Mm-mm.
And then they're like, well, call in your muscles for help. And he's like, no, I have a job. Please stop.
Please don't. Yeah, I'm actually over this.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get in shape. Like later when he goes to the party without a date, and he's the only one.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah. That's why my favorite book of all of these was the one where it ended with him dancing with a girl. That was the one.
Because he needed that.
And it was a college girl. So the boys agree. Chet says that he's going to go pick up his sister and Callie Shaw at the movie.
The whole reason because he really should be in bed.
Yeah.
But he's still, because he has his first day on the job at the Hellfront.
But his sister's movie gets out at like 10:30.
10:30, so he's kind of killing time.
Yeah.
Hauling down protein.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And just being a bro. Just like, and he didn't even go to the movie with him.
No.
Like, was like, no, you do your thing. I'll pick you up after. So then they're like, oh.
We'll go get him.
You're picking up Callie and Iola.
Yeah.
Who are, of course,
their favorite dates.
Yeah, their favorite dates.
Yeah. Joe and Frank's favorite dates are Callie. And they agree to go pick them up, and then they don't.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They're like, we'll do it. And Chet's like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And he manages to get a free hamburger out of him. But yeah, and then they do not. They absolutely do not pick up those girls.
They get to the movie theater, but then someone just robbed the movie theater.
Yep, and is running out.
Why would you rob a movie theater?
I don't know either, because that's like...
They can't have that much cash on hand.
$200 in the register probably before they do the bank drop? Well, I mean, this is probably before the drop, right? Like,
right, but no, I mean...
This is one of those, like, how did things work back then?
They probably had, like, $50 in the register. I don't even... I mean, if that seems like a ton of money.
You're right.
Like, in these books, sometimes the boys will get, like, $10 and it will last.
And it will, that's a trip to New York? Like, yeah, exactly. But, yeah.
So they chase one of the Goggler crooks who just robbed the movie. And they just...
Which, again, he's wearing a nylon...
And then
sack, and then light up lights right over his eyes.
Can't see.
No, he cannot see. The fact that he doesn't break his ankle coming off the curb, like 6 feet out the movie theater, is its own miracle.
So yeah,
But instead, he gets in a car and drives away.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's so dangerous. They decide to chase after this person.
Yep.
They get in their car. They completely forget their office.
Immediately, as soon as they see a man running out of the front of the movie theater where they're supposed to pick up their dates, they're like, follow him. And like, it's done.
And they do. And they, let's see, they just puncture a tire, right?
Yeah, well, the other car ends up in a ditch.
Oh, that's right. That's the one that blows the tire.
The car, like, yeah, and they pull up behind it. Mm-hmm. No, it's turned on its side.
Oh, the blue hardtop was lying on its side. The wheel's still spinning. Mm-hmm. They decide. So I'm not going to read this. It's fine. The one thing is that's important is that when they run up to see the guy who's driving the car that just crashed, he is swarthy and has a hook nose face.
Swarthy, shocker.
Hook nose, shocker.
Yeah.
And so they ask him if he's hurt, and then he said, grab his arm, Joe, and help me swing him over so I can search his coat pocket. And I'm like, what? No. Like, you have no right.
Yeah.
Just hold him until the cops show up.
Yeah, exactly. The cops will do that.
They didn't call the cops, though, before they chased this guy.
That's true.
But then they decide to haul this guy who was acting like his legs are injured. They're just going to drag him out of the car, which I'm like, you don't have to do that. It's not on fire. It's not...
Yeah.
But they do that. If you've ever seen an episode of Cops where somebody gets like arrested for crack and immediately they're like, oh, my leg.
Oh, my leg, my leg. Yeah, exactly. You're like, come on, dude.
Yeah,
and also, if you'll notice, the cops in that episode of Cops are like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
they haul him to his feet and he's like, no, I can't walk. And the moment that they set him down and they're like, well, he's saying his leg, and then they turn and he's like,
he's gone.
looking at
He's gone.
handcuffs on.
And they're like, oh.
That's exactly what happened.
But can we talk about, because the way that he happens is he fakes that he has my poor leg, and then he waits until Joe is distracted by something else, and then he reaches out, and the illustration...
Oh, it's so good on
it's
page
like
39, yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't make any sense. The guy is on the ground, and he's reaching out, and he's got a real good firm grip on Frank. Is it? No, it must be Joe.
No, I think it's Frank.
On Frank's ankle.
Yeah. It looks like he's like shoving upwards. You have to be so strong
to
grab a standing adult man's
ankle, whose weight presumably is balanced on both feet, and like jerk him to the ground.
Or shove it up in the air enough that he...
Like if I was standing right now and somebody grabbed me by the ankle, I'd just kick him.
Yeah.
Like
with my other obviously free foot.
Well, no, with the foot connected by the ankle.
Yeah.
And like...
No.
But it's enough. You can grab Frank by one ankle and jerk it out from under him, and he will fall down.
So after this whole thing happens, I don't think they check in with the cops at this point, but they just go back to the movie theater, and they're like, and then they find out that the show ended like a long time ago.
Yeah, exactly, because they went on like a whole car chase and all this other,
so
and hung out with a dude at a car wreck waiting for police to arrive. And
so they go back to the
diner where they saw Chet.
And everyone's like, hey, there you are. And you think Chet's going to be like, remember how
you guys said that you were going to go and pick up the girls, and then you didn't pick up the girls?
Whatever, fatty.
And then he's like, okay, well, you know what? I forgive you for all of this, but I have to work in the morning. So can we go home? What did the Hardy Boys say?
No.
No, we're going to order some hamburgers first.
Okay.
And then everybody hangs out while the Hardy Boys get their hamburgers and eat them.
Yeah, where they could have said, oh, you go home, Chet.
Go.
Yeah,
we'll have some hamburgers and we'll call you in the morning. They're like, nope, no one can leave until we have eaten.
And even Iola has to get on the ribbing. She's like, your excuse, it didn't take us long to find to find my big brother. I'm like, bitch. Like,
yeah, why? Why are
Can't he have one person on his side?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
So they get home.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Fenton Hardy is going over some case reports, and he learns about the Goggler. Let's see. Oh, he comments that it's weird that a member of the Goggler Gang
would hold up a movie theater. Yeah,
is that ever explained?
Yes, but I mean it's in the info dump.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so dumb.
And they said he's looking for a swindler named Ace Pampton, and I was like, oh, that's the same case. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it. Don't wait for that case to be over to start a new case. It's the same case.
Right. It's very clearly these are all tying together. Also,
so he sends them because he says, I'm finally on that stolen jeweled Shiva.
Yeah, hey, do you remember the jeweled Siva? That thing that was that seems like it's supposed to be from a different book.
The one on the radio
that appeared on the radio as like a jeweled idol was stolen. Yeah,
6-inch.
Anyway, so remember the jeweled Siva?
Yeah, apparently Fenton Hardy is going to be on that case, but he has to finish the case he's working on first because one case at a time. But he sends the boys out to interview the woman who it was stolen from. He's like, I've been offered the case, but I can't take the case until I track down Ace Pampton. But you know what you could do is you could do the legwork that I normally do at the beginning of the case, so that when I'm ready, I don't have to do any work. They're like, awesome. They find out that a car is tailing them on their way up there. And
oh, yeah, that's right. They're being tailed.
It's like a green sports car with a license plate they catch a couple numbers of. And it's Torpedo V8. And that's related to the other car that crashed that they were chasing was a Torpedo V8.
And it was stolen. They find out also it was stolen from a company called Imzier Motors.
Imzier Motors.
The
third of the elderly men.
Yeah, of the weird, eccentric, rich elderly men.
Well, it's time to check in with Bingo for the first time.
Okay.
Let's see. Boys have not been tied up.
No shipwreck, no horse chase.
Haven't trespassed. I didn't get anything on this run through.
A minority that's not Phil or Tony. Trespassing. Occult. The sleuth. I have the sleuth.
Awesome.
Fist fight. There's been at least one fist fight.
who'd they fight so far?
There's the grab of the ankle. That's not really a fist fight.
No.
Okay.
But what about when they got brought into that clubhouse? And they were...
Oh, that's a fist fight. Anyway, they decide to take a boat down to...
Up the river.
Up. Is it up? River?
Up a river,
yeah.
is what they say.
I have to say...
I do not understand the geography of Bayport.
They motor up to this dock, right?
Yes.
And it's clearly like... I've been playing a lot of Red Dead Redemption lately.
Sure.
So it's like you're clearly in the little fishing village that's like north of Saint Denis. But anyway, like where you gotten into hillbilly country.
Okay.
You've left the city, big city, and you're in hillbilly country. And you know this because as they pull up to the dock, there's a kid wearing nothing but overalls.
Yeah, it's Opie.
Yeah, it's Opie. And he's fishing, and he's looking almost surly. Yeah. And they're like, "Do you know where we can find this house?"
And he does tell them.
And he does tell them, and they're like, "Thank you." And then he's like, "You guys realize you just scared off a big, fat, smallmouth bass?" He's mad because they scared away his fish.
Probably what he was going to eat.
Yeah, exactly. But for some reason, the way he's like surly, and and he says, "You scared away a big fat bass," and they're like, "Well, in the future, we'll keep our big fat boat out of here," which is like, why?
I was like, "We don't antagonize."
Yeah.
After they talk to this like weird dog food breath kid, they go to this poor woman's house, and
yeah, and this was
confusing. Yeah, well, they go up and
it's clearly from a different book. It's clearly
a different mystery.
Different mystery.
They're like, my dad wants to take your case, but we want to ask you some questions. And she says, like, come on in. And she says, I can see what you're thinking. You're wondering how someone as poor as I am ever managed to own a priceless object as the jeweled Shiva. Well, there's a long story attached to it. We'd like to hear it, Joe murmured. And I was like, is that sarcasm? He's like, we'd like to hear it. We'd like to hear it. I'm like, don't mumble, you murmuring weirdo.
Yeah.
So her late husband, Clarence Lunbury, he was an archaeologist. But I think he was actually just a
grave robber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're like, he went all over the world to dig among ancient ruins.
And I was like, dig up graves.
To loot graves.
Yeah, exactly.
To loot
like,
graves.
well, all these things should be returned then, right? Like
to the British Museum, yes. I'm sorry, probably the Museum of Natural History in New York. Basically, he stole this valuable artifact and was told that there was a curse on it, and then was like, okay, and took it anyway. And then a bunch of people died of things that they would probably die of. Malaria, being mauled by a leopard. Like,
you'd probably die of that anyway.
It's hard to blame a curse for being mauled by a wild animal.
Yeah.
Unless it's like...
more easy to blame the curse for the malaria.
Yeah. I guess. You're like, yeah, but like... He was carrying a bunch of raw meat.
Yeah.
In the dark alone.
Oh, yeah, by himself. And what were you... Yeah.
Well, it was a dare.
But then you notice that, like, her husband lost a bunch of money.
Yes.
And then he died. And then the curse is, from what I understand, over.
Yeah, but instead of selling the thing, she, like, kept it as a grave robber souvenir.
Yeah.
But then she finally came upon...
So let's tie that on the end, because maybe the curse does come back.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, she gave it to an antique dealer named Fontana in New York City, and it was stolen from Fontana's antique store. And his insurance company won't cover it because...
she didn't sign her side of the contracts?
Yeah, which...
This lady got scammed, dude!
Yeah. Well, she said that it was like her absent-mindedness that she never signed it.
Oh,
but I feel like that, like, isn't a verbal contract binding in the state of New York?
I don't know.
I feel like that's been used.
That's been a big part of like the People's Court.
Yeah,
yeah.
And so, like, I feel like just the whole intention. There was a lot of. Well, later it turns out that Fontana is actually going to collect that insurance stuff, because I feel like if you look at the paper trail, there was at least a good faith agreement.
His name is Fontana.
Yeah, he's not a good guy in the book.
Come on, like, yeah.
Sorry to all you Fontanas out there. Apparently, F.W. Dixon thinks that
Fontana is a bad guy name. Yeah, exactly.
Do they see, like, a lurker?
Yeah, they do. They see a head with no face. Or maybe a person wearing a nylon stocking on their face, but...
That's like when they saw somebody in a previous book held a mask in front of a window, and they're like, a floating head!
Yeah, exactly!
It's the exact opposite of that.
But yeah, they freak out, but when they do run outside, the person has drawn the same symbol of the
the eye
that was on
sparks.
whoever was outside wearing the mask has drawn it on their house.
Clearly
which was the first time that I wrote, like, why the calling cards?
Yeah.
Like, if you're a crime syndicate that
Yes.
is actually trying to get away with crimes, you don't leave calling cards. This isn't the Wild West where you're like, and tell everybody you got robbed by the Wefso Gang.
Yeah.
You know, like...
No, it's maybe with the chewing gum. It's
Yeah.
my calling card. And you're like, why?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Because you want to get caught. So they after this whole interlude with this old lady, they go to see Bill Braxton at the hospital, and he's fine. First, they run into Tony, and Tony's like, "You got to go see Chet Morton as soon as possible. It's urgent." And they're like, "Okay," and then don't.
He radios them.
Yes,
and I know that we are slowing ourselves down a lot, but this is actually one of the big things I want to talk about
radios.
this book is the radios.
How
okay,
do radios work?
Well, and not only that, but you know, we think to ourselves as millennials, and I mean, I remember a time before cell phones and the internet, but I was 12 or 13 or under that, but like. We have this conversation a lot about, like, how did things happen before phones? Or, like, how did you do that before the internet, right?
Yeah.
I wonder how you would have called somebody in their car while you were in your car back in the 30s.
Shortwave radio.
Well, it turns out that the way that you do that, if you're writing a fictional book, is you just invent cell phones about 60 or 70 years before they're invented.
And you just call them shortwave
And you just call them shortwave radios, and everybody has one. But, like... Charles, you must have some memories of a time before cell phones
and
the
course.
internet. In those vague memories that you have, how many times did you radio someone? Like, I'm just going, come on, Charles. Like,
I mean, our
but
aunt
they make
was
it,
a trucker, and
but they make it seem like everybody just radioed each other, all the time.
And like, how do they all know what frequency they're on?
Yeah.
And
how do they not mix it up with other frequencies? That's what I'm saying. It's not radio.
It's cell phones.
They were like, well, how are they going to call each other? We'll say that it's a radio. But it turns out that how did things happen in stories before there were cell phones? They invented cell phones, and then everybody just used that. Like,
that's great.
All right.
Well, they get this radio from Tony, and Tony's like, "You gotta go talk to Chet Morton immediately, as soon as possible." And they're like, "Will do," but then they don't.
They don't. First, he's like, "Somebody was looking after you," and they're like, "Okay." And he's like, "I'll let you know when you get here."
Yeah,
and they motor all the way there, and they're like, "What do you think that was about?" When they get there, he's like, "Chet was asking around about you."
Chet, our friend Chet.
He's like, "Yeah, better hurry."
And they're like,
"Fuck, dude,
okay.
Why couldn't you be like, hey, Chet wants you to go to?"
Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, but then they don't. Chet says it's urgent. He wants you to meet him, and they're like, "Why don't we stop by a different hospital?" First?
That reminds me that other person is probably conscious. This is the first example, and there's many in this book, of the boys scheduling stops that they don't have time for.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
they're like, we're supposed to be there in like 5 minutes, but let's stop at a different place and talk to a person for 15.
Let's stop at a hospital and find a parking space and ride in the elevator up to the way and find out which room he's in, and then go and talk to
When they do talk to Bill Braxton, he's like, "I'm fine. I guess I have a thick skull from being a race car driver." I'm like, "You have CTE." And
that was the second time I was like, race car driver. Have we met Bill Braxton before? Because
I do kind of wonder. He's just fine, but they won't let him out of the hospital for some reason. He said that he met Spotty Lemuel, or Lambert, as Bill Braxton knows him, because he used to drive stock cars. Yeah, stock cars over for Izmir Motors. And they're like, "Oh, Izmir Motors was the place where those Torpedo V8s
were stolen from."
Tornado?
Torpedo. You're right.
Yeah.
Torpedo V8.
They were stolen from Izmir Motors. So they're like, "Oh my God, there's a connection."
That's exactly right.
And then they decide
that they're going to go and talk to Zachary Mudge.
At the health farm. Where Chet works.
So they pull up to the...
the health club.
The health
Chet's
club.
outside.
And he has a kind of worried look on his face.
He says, "You boys about to be kidnapped."
Kidnapped?
He's like, "Yeah."
Chapter cliffhanger.
Okay, but you've been kidnapped lots of times. And it's kind of cool if there's like a different twist on the kidnapping where you let yourself get kidnapped because you know what's about to happen.
Which the boys have also done. They've allowed themselves to be kidnapped. But yeah.
And then he's like, but anyway, I'm not off for another half an hour.
Half an hour,
I do love
let's take a tour.
This is great. They said, "Why did you tell us to come at 11:30 if you don't get off until noon?" And he's like, "Because I wanted to make sure that you would get here in time."
Yeah. He's like, "You guys are always off on a bunch of harebrained schemes. I wanted to make sure that you arrived. So and then he's like, but since we have 30 minutes, let's take a tour. And
I'll just show you around.
Yep, they walk around. He points out a large man with large hands named Rip Cinder, who I wrote down as Rip Cinder Hired Goon.
Yeah, absolutely. He's an ex-pug. Is what they
pugilist, the ex-boxer,
Yeah, I figured that's what it meant.
Yeah.
Ex-pugilist.
Yeah.
But they never use the word pugilist.
No, they just ex-pug.
They call him
but you gotta remember, this was 1937.
People knew what that
people
was.
boxed.
As the boys stood chatting and looking around, a burly man with a shock of thick black hair came toward them. He also wore a green gym shirt, revealing sloping muscular arms and furry ape-like arms. His nose was flat and almost shapeless. Cauliflower ears stuck out of his bullet-like head. I'm like, oh, he is a bad guy.
Yeah.
Possibly he has some sort of, like...
You know, actually, when you described it again, it reminds me of Chunk from Goonies.
Yes, he does.
Bullet-shaped head.
Yeah, the ears.
Like large gorilla arms, cauliflower ears.
And he can't speak because he got punched in the throat.
Shit! It's a Goonies crossover, and I'm just realizing that right now.
That Rip Cinder is Chunk.
Hi, you guys!
Somebody punched him in the Adam's apple so hard he can't talk no more.
Poor guy.
They do go see Mr. Mudge.
Zach Mudge, the character. Zachary Mudge was seated in a deck chair with his spindly legs stretched out. As before, he was clad only in shorts and a straw hat.
Did you want to see us, sir?
Frank said.
What? Speak up, boy.
As Frank repeated his words in a bellow, Mr. Mudge fiddled with his hearing aid.
All right. You don't have to shout. I'm not deaf. Certainly I want to see you. Why do you think I sent for you?
And that's like every single interaction with Zachary Mudge.
He didn't send for them. He found out they were there and was like, come over here.
It was like, get over here. And also, like, every single interaction with him is him being like, speak up, boy! Stop shouting! Hurry up, boy! Slow down! Like, they're trying to come up with...
thought it was funny. In the last Nancy Drew book that we just did, there was a rich woman with a lot of poodles that I felt like, oh, they wanted to have a character in this book.
Yeah, that's literally, every time he shows up, I'm like, oh, remember, he's a character. Like, that's literally his descriptive feature.
They basically find out that he wants to buy Braxton's boat.
Yeah, well, they convince him that he wants to buy Braxton's boat. Yeah.
Because it would be useful to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Then, let's see, Chet shows them the rest of the building, and then they see Chet doing exercises on... Oh, no, they walk by like a sawhorse, like a gym, like a gymnast.
A pommel horse. No, I wrote this down too. Man, you boys. Yeah. Like, seriously, they're like they walk by a pommel horse, like, all of the three of them together.
And they're like, hey, bet you couldn't use that. And he's like, no, I have to go change out of my work clothes and stuff. And they're like, okay, we understand, you're fat. And he's like, okay, I'll do it.
Okay, you know what? Fine.
And he does a pretty good job, and then he falls.
Yeah.
And then, but then I do say, I mean, they're clearly laughing at him, but he says, anyhow, it was a good try. And I'm like, there was a moment of them trying to, like, not.
Yeah, but you will notice that neither Frank or Joe tried the pommel horse for themselves.
Or tried to help him up with
Yeah, exactly. They were like, hey, Chet, go try that. You fucking suck, Chet. Anyway, what's the next thing? Like,
so they get kidnapped by Iola and Callie
for
surf beach party picnic.
And then the description of
the party is
they
awesome.
get kidnapped for a surf beach party by Callie and Iola.
And Callie and Iola brought their surfboards, which means that they went to the Hardy Boys' house. I just wrote weird friends.
Yeah.
Like, they went to the Hardy Boys' house and took their things out of the house. And we're like, no, it's cool.
It's fine, yeah.
And the parents were probably, I mean, Laura Hardy is probably so tranked out at this point.
Oh my God, she's so dilauded.
Like, she's like, Frank and Joe just went into the garage. And Aunt Gertrude was like, those were women.
And she's like, well, they wanted the surfboards.
And they said they were Frank and Joe, or for Frank and Joe.
I don't.
I'm going to lie down.
The flowers are so beautiful.
No flowers, Laura. And there's, they also brought their swimming trunks and 2 picnic hampers. So it's, I'm like, this is just the weirdest thing.
Can we get a bing if you're playing at home for picnic?
Also, I have a party, and I think this qualifies as both a picnic and a party. They go down to Gremlin Beach, which is fine as long as you're not there like after midnight.
Yeah, exactly.
They go surfing. It's a heck of a day for the surfbirds.
Yep.
Is what they say. And then Tony and Biff show up, and they both brought
They also
dates.
brought their own dates. They
Unnamed dates.
Literally not named. They're like, they also brought women. Like,
and they make no comment of the fact that Chet is alone. The whole thing, I did write poor Chet, but this whole thing about Biff tried and did a wipeout. I'm like, no, he didn't do a wipeout. He wiped out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's
like
kids.
the boy, like Frank was really amazing, and then Joe was really amazing too, and then somebody else tried it and couldn't do it,
and did a wipeout. When they're out like surfing, he sees some kid, Opie. They see dog food breath.
They say dog food. No, it's not dog food breath. It's the lookout kid.
It is the lookout kid
from the old house.
The club, yeah. Mm-hmm. And he's hitting on Iola or Callie or something. Yeah. And they could tell she's annoyed.
She's annoyed by him.
They also would probably immediately assume, like, hey, that guy's moving in on my girl.
Exactly.
This weird guy. He says his name is Fred Hare. Didn't have to give a real name. Chose to. And
does that sound like a real name to you?
Turns out to be real.
Fred Hare, Hare.
Yeah.
It turns out to be real. Which I got beef with. Yeah. But we'll get there.
So he tells them, like, he's like, I'm staying at a resort with my parents, and somebody paid me $5 to act as a lookout at that house. And he's like, I met a guy on the street who...
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to...
Yeah, no, I'm saying I met a guy on the street I'd never seen before, and he gave me the money. And they're like, it could have been Spotty Lemuel. And then, at a call from Tony, the Hardys turn their heads. Fred sees his chance and sprinted towards a sand dune. They looked up, and as they topped the dune, they saw him leap into a boat.
A boat?
What?
Where did that boat come from?
And it's on the beach? But anyway, he jumps into a boat, and then he shouts at them, I
fed you guys a pack of lies!
I know plenty more!
The boat sped off.
And I just wrote, awesome. Because I think that it was so confusing.
Like, what a cartoon mystery moment.
It made me think of our president, and him using the phrase, and many more!
Yeah.
To end a long Twitter rant where you're like, and many more what?
Yeah.
I fed you guys a pack of lies!
And many more!
Anyway, I thought it was great.
I do too, but like, I was just so... And especially given what we're going to learn later about that kid.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like...
Why did he do that?
Why did he do... Yeah.
Joe was furious, but Frank calmly strode back to their convertible to call Chief Collig. As the radio warmed up, the Hardys were startled to hear Aunt Gertrude's voice over the speaker.
Boys, come home at once,
she said.
I've caught the scoundrel who's behind this mystery.
What? I don't understand how radio is.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like the way they described it is you get in your car, and then you turn on your radio.
And you hear kind of that, like an old woo, as it powers on, like when you have old AM radio in a car.
So they do warm up.
They have power on.
And then after it's been there, it's going to... If you left it off, because I feel like their radio has voicemail. Otherwise, that's absurdly convenient. They're like, boys, come home. I've caught the culprit. And then it's like, oh, this is Chief Collig. like, how do they get
all their messages right? Like, was she on repeat?
Yeah.
So, but apparently it's not a recording because she says this is because he immediately was like, this is Frank on Gertrude. Who is the fellow that you've caught? And
I've no time to explain.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, exactly. Just get home here at once and help me attend to him. Your mother is out. Over and out. Because Aunt Gertrude...
She understands radio.
Is starting to... And I think...
she's a mystery solver in this one.
She's a mystery solver. She's tied up a criminal. This is actually where I wrote. Aunt Gertrude, the third Hardy Boy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They get home, though. Iola and Callie look stricken when they announced they had to rush home, but they recovered their good spirits.
Mm-hmm. And just are like, eat a hamburger. Yeah.
Okay.
And they pack them hamburgers. And yeah. Like, okay. As they drive home. Yep.
No, as they drive... I already ate one. We'll pack some more for the road.
Well, I am not Chet Morton. I don't need to eat 6 hamburgers between here and my house.
What's wrong with you? But when they get home, there's no Aunt Gertrude, and they find her tied up in the basement.
Oh.
And she's tied up, and there's a note that says, take my advice and keep this blabbermouth gagged all the time.
You know what? You should take that advice. Because Aunt Gertrude is a blabbermouth.
Good dig.
Right, exactly. But
we get our first leaping lizards on page 6.
Yep, leaping lizards. I also noted that. And actually, it's our only leaping lizards
in the whole book. Yeah. But then they see the chalked on the door. To their study, to their dad's study is the eye.
Yep,
And they can tell that
eye.
somebody has tried to get into the safe. Looks as though he never did manage to get into the safe.
Frank remarked.
Indeed, he didn't.
Gertrude Hardy retorted.
I snatched up a lace from the hallway table and struck him over the head with it. The man was out cold, I believe you two would say.
Frank and Joe's faces broke into broad grins.
Nice work, Auntie.
Said Frank.
Is that when you went downstairs and called us over the radio? Yes.
Aunt Gertrude went on.
But when I came back up to check on him, the scoundrel had revived. This time he waved a small bottle of nitroglycerin that he brought to blast open the safe and threatened to blow up the house. I became faint with nervous shock, and that was when he tied me up. But not before I gave him a good piece of my mind. Do you want me to keep going?
No, that was it. So...
She thought that his...
First of all...
That's enough to blow up a house.
First of all, he brings in a vial of nitroglycerin, and he's like, I am going to blow up the safe with this.
Yeah.
But now that you are threatening me, I'm going to blow up the whole house with it.
Yeah.
Like he can choose whether it's going to be a house detonating nitroglycerin or just a small safe detonating nitroglycerin.
No,
and then also, my favorite part about it is that she says she saw that and she basically fainted.
Yes.
But not without giving a piece of her mind, which means she
Her
was
being
like,
like,
oh, well, I call the police in my heart.
Scoundrel. A real piece of, and he was like, blabbermouth. I'm going to write a whole note about that.
Even when she was passing out, she was like, give you a piece of my mind, you never get away with it.
You should keep her gagged all the time.
All the time. All the time.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, so the guy apparently cleared out and didn't get into the safe.
Nope, and so...
Mrs. Hardy describes him because she says that features do reveal character, which is like phrenology.
Yeah,
sort of like old school suicide.
Right, exactly.
And they agree that it wasn't Spotty Lemuel, based on her description.
Yeah, they agree.
And then they realize that they forgot to call the chief about that suspicious kid. But I'm like, that's cool.
We'll get to it at some point. The next note that I have is casing Izmir Motors. So how do they get there? Remind me.
Let's see. After breakfast, they drive to Ocean City, and they get directions to Izmir Motors. And then it's like a huge car lot, and they see a whole row of green torpedoes, V8s.
That's pretty much what this dealership specializes in.
Yeah,
and they have a lot full of cars for sale, and then they have a field behind the lot full of more cars that they're going to put in when the cars that are for sale on the lot have sold.
So they drive down and they look at all the licenses. They finally find one that has the license that has a couple of the same numbers as the one that almost like
DZ7. That's all they remember is the first three digits.
They go to talk to the manager, and he's the first person who reacts normally, where they demand a bunch of information. And he's like,
what the?
No.
Yeah, no. I think he's like, I have better things to do than answer questions from a bunch of...
Yeah, and he tells him, like, our father, Fenton Hardy, is a private investigator. And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, who owns that car? And he's like, I can't tell you.
I can't tell you and won't tell you.
And
call the police.
I have other things to do. And then they said, maybe you'd rather have us go to the police. And I was like, yeah, and he responds, but I was like, if I was that guy, I'd be like, for what?
But... When the Hardys do it, it's a threat.
Yes.
It's like, well, if you don't talk to us,
we'll just go get.
You could talk to a person.
Like, okay, well, hey.
Well, then, hey, maybe this guy. Maybe once I admit my crimes, this person won't tell the police.
But I really like that the guy. Goes. He's like, I'll go check, and then runs away. And they're like, I think he left.
I'm pretty sure he ran away.
He ran away.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And they. Oh, that's right. They see that the green car drives away. And so they follow it. But it's nighttime, so they keep their lights off.
So at one point, they're like... Well, and the funny thing is, they follow the car, through all the, bright, heavily lit streets, but it's only once they get out into the country where there aren't any street lights
kill the lights.
They're like, we should kill the light. And then just drive blind, and then,
let's turn on the lights real quick. And when they turn it on, they're like, oh, shit! Right,
but while they're driving with the lights off, we get our second Frank towing the accelerator, kind of wiggling his toe around.
Stop it!
He's towing it.
But yeah, as soon as they turn out the light, they realize
they're like, let's turn on the lights. Holy fuck!
Let's see. So when they get out of their car after the crash, they're fine, I guess. They're shaken.
Yep.
But they get out and immediately they're beaten up.
Yep.
And knocked out.
Grabbed, punched, beaten up.
And tied up, and then left tied up lying in the road.
And they wake up 15, 20 minutes later, so let's bing! some permanent brain damage.
Brain damage. It does. I don't understand why they knocked them out. Like, disabling their vehicle seems
should
to
be enough.
Good
but they're
enough.
like, well, we should also incapacitate them.
That means that some guys hung around by that place where their car crashed. Instead of just getting picked up by the car that was chasing.
It's the same reason that when they went into that house, the guys kept going at their pockets.
Trying to get in their
pockets. I'm using finger quotes. Pockets.
Right at their
pockets.
Also,
when this happened, I was like, hey, boys, when this is over, you might want to check your pockets.
Yeah. Feel around down there.
Make sure nothing was disturbed.
Any sore spots. But yeah, they wake up and they're like, "Aren't we a bunch of dummies?" It looks like there was a bunch of construction signs. Not that they would have seen it anyway with their lights off.
And they specifically say like a bunch of them have been obscured too.
This was one of the things that made me think of the 1930s though. Is his nearby lanterns and warning flares all extinguished, and the idea of like
they're lanterns.
A construction site having flame lanterns.
Flame lanterns,
that seems like something from 1937.
Absolutely. But then when they analyze the damage of their car, they're like, well, the frame needed straightening. So my response was like, well, totaled then, right?
Because you can't just take it back to a frame straightener.
Yeah, exactly.
Your car.
Totaled.
No, it's fine. They get a hold of a police operator. Let's see. Oh, they get back to their house after midnight. Mm-hmm. And there's a note that says Bill Braxton tried to reach them twice. The next morning, they get up for breakfast. And they
a hearty breakfast, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I'm sure. Yeah. They get up the next morning, and Bill offers to take them out on a trip on the Sea Spoon.
On his hydrofoil.
Yes.
The Sea Spoon. And he says, yeah, come out.
There's a bunch more.
And they say, well, we think that we might know a man named Zachary Mudge, a certain hatted, shirtless investor who might be interested. And he's like, well, absolutely. He's the one who called me. That's why I'm setting up this whole display.
Oh.
It was because, Zachary Mudge called
Bill Braxton.
Bill Braxton. I need you to pilot a hydrofoil boat to my shipyard manufacturer so they can analyze it to decide whether or not we should mass produce it.
And he was like, cool.
Okay.
Let's just do it.
Yeah. That's
Keen idea.
Yep.
So they decide that they're going to ride with him. And then while he is at the boatworks, they're going to take a quick jaunt.
Just a quick trip.
To New York City.
This is another one of those like scheduling things where it's like, well, we've got 45 minutes.
Do you want to go to New York?
45 minutes, I guess we could probably take a ferry to Staten Island, and then from Staten Island to Manhattan, and then flag a cab, and then take that cab to the other end of Manhattan, and then find
an antique
store, and then wait for the antique dealer to be done dealing with any customers in his shop. Like, we can do that in 40 minutes.
And it works great.
It does. It all works out. Perfectly.
They go talk to this guy who Fontana, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Who I pictured with a French accent for some reason.
Okay, sure.
I don't know.
Sort of accent.
Maybe because Mr. French owns the costume shop and he owns the antique shop.
Okay.
But I assume Mr. Fontana has this French, and it's not even real French accent. It is absurd French accent.
Yeah. So he owns a place called Objets d'Art. So, yes. And it's Federico Fontana, which to me sounds
more Italian. But for some reason, I still think he's a Frenchman. I am Federico Fontana.
I love it. And then they're like, we're Mr. Fenton Hardy's sons. He's like, oh my God, yes, definitely I've heard of Fenton Hardy. And I was like, how? How did you hear about Fenton Hardy? But they don't really the only person he remembers who he figured was suspicious was a dark-skinned man.
You remember as suspicious?
Suspicious?
It's one of those moments well, think for a second.
Well, there was a dark-skinned man in a turban who appeared to be East Indian. Okay, well, anybody else? Because I feel like you just noticed that guy.
Just that guy. Right, yeah.
Any other dark-skinned people?
No. Literally any other people is what we're asking.
But you said suspicious. Like hook nose?
Like swar. Are you asking about swarthy gentlemen?
Oh God! These books.
Unbelievable. Yeah, you're right. This one's gonna be hell to edit for you.
He doesn't give a lot of information, I guess. They do show him the glass eye, and he's like, he doesn't seem super into it. You think he'd be trying to get a hold of it real bad if he's a bad guy, but he doesn't.
You're talking about
when they show the antique dealer Fontana the glass eye. They don't show it to him. It's back
but he doesn't know.
That's right.
But he doesn't know what it is. Yeah, they describe it to him.
Oh no, he does. They do take it out. And he's like, oh, so intriguing. I've never seen such an object before. He doesn't like...
But he also says that he feels like it might have been contemporarily made.
Sure.
He specifically is like, it looks new.
And he's like, can I hold on to it? And they're like, no.
No. Yeah, exactly.
And then
which is, honestly, one of those moments where like, oh shit, I might be missing in all the adventure the fact that they're actually building some foreshadowing there. Like, in that scene, they told you that the glass eye is not an antique. It's not a treasure. It's new. Mm-hmm. They also tell you that, like, it doesn't have it doesn't have a lot of scratches on it. It doesn't seem to have any intrinsic value. Like,
sure, like it's not a valuable jewel,
right? Which is going to start looping back in later. It's
so when they walk out, they see Zada, the blind informant, and he's like, they're like,
hey, Zada, and he's like, get away from me! I don't know who you are. I'll call you later. I don't know who you are. I'll call you later.
He's very suspicious, and they finally meet back up with Bill Braxton at the boat. Oh, they decide to go out,
and they're about to do their boat demonstration.
They're doing some boat tricks.
Remember, they're doing the boat demonstration so that Zach Mudge,
can agree that
he should invest in this new hydrofoil boat design, so mass produce them for high speed boating.
Yes. But there's an accident, the rudder jams, something horrible happens, and sabotage. Frank and Braxton are hurled into the water, and they might be mangled by the propeller.
Oh, they might.
But they're not. They're fine.
No, they're fine. Because, I mean, what, is Frank going to get mangled by a propeller? Are we going to read another 60 books where it's like, Joe, a Startin Howdy boy of 23, and his paraplegic brother Frank, wounded in a propeller accident in book 20. Like,
yeah, they... Mudge is like, oh, well, looking at all of this, or at least whoever is looking at the demonstration, Rummel is the guy's name, is like, I don't know if we can make a move on this. Seems pretty experimental. And
he's like, are you kidding? My boat was sabotaged.
Yeah, somebody cut this thing with
literally, like, with a vibra saw or something. Like, they cut through titanium struts. And
he's like, I think it was
probably too hard of a turn.
Yeah.
Turned too hard. Yeah.
And so, he's like, this doesn't make any sense to me other than the need to say the title of the book. They say, who would have done it? He says, not a clue, unless it was someone who doesn't want the sea spook to go into production.
You mean like a figure in hiding?
And you think Bill Braxton would be like, no?
No? What? And they're like, well, I'm sorry, it's just...
It's what we decided
We decided the name of this book was Figure in Hiding, and... It actually turns out that's really obscure, so we're probably not actually ever going to land on Figure in Hiding in like a normal way.
So we had to just sort of make
just kind of like wedge it. Hey, that's the name of this show.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's the name of this show. They get home, they find out that they had a call from Chief Collick, and they learn that the license plate that they asked him to look in on is actually owned by Malcolm Ismir, the guy who
owns Ismir Motors.
Yeah, so when they asked the dude at the motor place, he should have been immediately like, oh, that's the owner's car.
The owner, yeah. But instead, he either lied to them or ran away. Yeah, exactly. Like, he
clearly
was subversive.
Suspicious. And then they were like, what about that kid? Did you find anything about him? And they're like, well, he is staying with his parents at a resort.
Turns out he's... Okay, but remember when I talked way earlier, 2 hours ago in podcast time, about how this was one of the rare moments of foreshadowing?
Okay, yeah.
They say that Lambert is staying at the Bayport Inn.
Yes.
And then, 200 pages later, they're like, it turns out that this kid was staying at the Bayport Inn with his parents. And it's the same way he describes it. It was like, some guy came up to me and offered me $20 to be a lookout.
Lambert. Yeah.
Exactly. That actually turns out to, pan out, and turns out to be not foreshadowing in the, that's the killer. Yeah. But in a, there's a clue if you're paying attention. They stayed in the same place.
Yeah.
And could have talked to each other.
But I did like how it says, did his story check out? And then Chief says, it seems so. The crack about knowing more than he told you was just bragging. His father promised to give him a good talking to. And it made me think again of our president. The kind of guy who would just tweet that he knows stuff that he shouldn't pretend to know, because if he did know that, it would be illegal.
He better hope there aren't tapes.
They call the repair garage. And their convertible is already ready to pick up. It was totaled the night before. It's fine.
It's been...
This is the second time now that it's been... Or maybe it's the first
time it's been totaled.
In this book.
Yeah. In this book.
They call the motel, and the manager says that He keeps a record of all outgoing phone calls, and then he gives them the numbers that Lambert called.
Like I didn't realize that hotels in the 50s and 60s wiretapped you.
I guess.
But
well, they had
it makes a lot more sense now. It makes me understand the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr.
Right.
Honestly, like...
yeah. Oh, all the phones are safe.
Shit. Okay, yeah.
I mean, I'm reading a bunch of Raymond Chandler, and every hotel he goes to has a girl sitting at the PBX booth.
That's
true. Where she's doing all the phone...
Yeah.
And, like, usually that's his point of contact in a
hotel.
hotel.
The Travis McGee books are the same way.
Yeah, he'll go up and he'll hit on the PBX girl.
The kind of mystery books you should be reading instead of listening to this goddamn podcast.
What's wrong with you? Thanks for listening. They decide what? They're going to run over to Ocean City right away because as soon as you find out about a criminal, you got to go.
Yeah, right now. We got to go get him. Confront them immediately.
And when they go in...
They need to find a way to kind of keep it in the pants.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hold on.
Yeah.
Don't always just go for it immediately.
Yeah.
But when they show up, the guy who was running the store, he turns pale when he sees them and is like, "Hey, come in."
Yeah, no, it's fine. You know.
And then they're like, "Why didn't you just tell us that was your boss's car?
Why were you a dick to us before?"
And he was like, "I didn't know. I don't know." And they're like, "You weren't very cooperative with us." And he's like, "I
got a shady phone call saying that some teenagers were going to come in and try and scam me." And
almost believable.
Absolutely, until they're like, "Yeah." But then one of your other cars tried to run us off the road.
True. Mm-hmm. That was part of the call.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Very weird.
Yeah, I don't even know what that was about, so I guess.
But is this when they go out to the Izmir mansion? The guy who owns the...
They're about to go out.
And they're like, you know what would be fun? What if we went and broke into a person's house?
That's not how they start.
They go out.
We're going to go call
but here's
on
the
Malcolm
thing.
Izmir.
They go to the gate. They get no answer and are like... Well, let's go over.
I guess we go over the fence now, right?
Yeah, which is still breaking and entering. Like
absolutely, that's trespassing.
When you walk up to somebody's door and you knock on the door and then you open it without anybody answering, and go, "Hello, anybody home?" It's still breaking.
That's still trespassing. Yeah.
Hey, it's the Ricky thing of like, "Hey, we're here to check your pipes and meters. Just with the plumbers."
Just want to. All right.
We're good. But then they get attacked, and this is the piece of art that I wanted to talk about on page 85.
Okay.
As soon as they jump over the fence, somebody lets the dogs loose on them. A bunch of hounds.
They're like killers. They're killers.
German Shepherds, I think is what they are.
They're Doberman Pinschers.
Doberman Pinschers. But anyway, in the photo, it looks like a little baby lamb that, as it approaches them, shapeshifts
into, like Animorphs.
Yeah.
Transforms into a larger,
which is
scarier
terrifying,
dog.
because you're like, "Oh, look, a little baby lamb."
Oh shit! And then it's biting your face off.
Yeah, but they get up in a tree to get away from these dogs, and you're supposed to. I guess you're supposed to feel bad for them, but you're like, no. I mean, these dogs are very well trained, and why did you notice that the person put broken glass at the top of the gate of the of the wall.
And they're like, well, we probably shouldn't go in there because of the broken glass at the top of the gate.
But anyway, it's time to check in with Bingo again, and I think it's great since trespassing just occurred. Well, the Queen I got because they've been driving that yellow jalopy all over.
Any explosions yet? No made-up country.
They did get tied up, and they did trespass.
Have they gone to Ocean City yet?
Yes, they did. They left Bayport, but they haven't left the country.
The boys left Bayport.
I have an animal and sabotage.
What animal?
The dogs. Doberman Pinschers.
Oh, the dogs. Yeah, totally. Mrs. Hardy leaves the house. Secret codes because of the crossed out messages.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yep. Occult, no. New vehicle, no. Animal, yes.
Thanks for listening, and check back soon for part 2 of the Hardy Boys Drinkbook number 16, A Figure in Hiding, featuring Jack Wefso.